Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Dr. Michael Gerg coming to you live from my treadmill, my stationary treadmill, so I don't make people motion sick. For those unfamiliar with my work, every year I read through every issue of every English language nutrition journal in the world, so busy folks like you don't have to. I think compile the most interesting, most groundbreaking, most practical findings and new videos and articles I upload nearly every day to my nonprofit site, nutritionfacts.org. Everything on the website is free. There are no ads, no commercial sponsorships, strictly non-commercial, not selling anything. Just put it up as a public service, as a labor of love, as a tribute to my grandmother, whose own life was saved with evidence-based nutrition. I am sorry I am a minute late. It's been a busy day, but I'm so glad you're on. Let us go through your questions. First question, and if you remember, if you want to get questions, if you get on early, you can ask them, and then they'll all be queued up, and so you can definitely get yours in. By the time it's like halfway through, the questions are flowing so quick, I hardly get to any of them. But all right, first one, for younger individuals trying to build muscle, is it safe, effective to go above the protein RDA if they're eating whole food, plant-based, and only consume foods low in methionine? All right, so this person has obviously read my How Not to Age, my latest book on longevity, showing that indeed, for older men and women, there's no benefit in terms of muscle mass, muscle strength, or muscle performance in adding extra protein to the diets of older men and women. However, that's not necessarily the case for younger men and women. So last I checked, there was a meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials of adding protein to boost lean mass. And there's 26 studies. And there's such there's such a cultural phenomenon around protein for building muscle mass that surely almost all of them showed benefit, right? No, 95% of them failed to show any significant increase in lean body mass. 25 out of 26 failed. But enough trend in that direction that if you do a meta-analysis, you can tease out about a 0.3 kilogram increase over 13 weeks of an extra 40 grams of protein a day when added to a resistance training program. So I think less than most people imagine. And lean mass could just be water retention or liver or kidney swelling. There's actually not a great correlation between changes in lean mass measurements and the gold standard, which is MRI imaging. You can actually see the actual muscle mass themselves. So there's only a correlation of R of 0.49, which all stat geeks out there know is really just a moderate to weak correlation. Look, it depends on the source, right? If you want to eat more lentils, fine, eat more lentils, but we really should try to stick to 0.8 grams per healthy kilogram body weight for those under age 65, because protein restriction down to recommended levels is best associated with longevity. All right. Oh, wow. There's already a million questions, but let's go on to the next one. Is it showing up here? There it is. Next one is, are there specific foods I should eat or avoid as someone with dysautonomia? Not that I know of. Although, I'm going to be doing a lot of work on peripheral nerve issues in my book, How Not to Hurt. And so maybe I'll run across something that's helpful. Kevin says, fortified nutritional yeast with B12. Does the synthetic folate promote cancer growth, disrupt normal folate metabolism? And so by synthetic folate, you mean folic acid. I don't think we should go out of our way to add folic acid to our diet. We should certainly make sure we get enough folate. The reason that they encourage women of reproductive age to get enough folic acid because it significantly decreases risk of certain types of birth defects. And the reason they do this is because people don't get enough folate, which is found largely in beans and greens. And so the problem is people aren't eating enough beans and greens. And so that would be better than folic acid, just because folic acid, if you look at the videos on the website, stays in our, is not metabolized into folate, kind of the usable form within our body as fast as we used to think based on rodent experiments, and so may lead to some problems. And so I wouldn't go out of the way to add folic acid to one's diet. However, we want to have, if that's your only source of B12, you want to make sure you get B12. You don't, of course, have to get B12 from nutritional yeast. You can get it from supplement or other B12 fortified foods. I mean, yeah, it's not something I worry about. And I'm sure the nutritional yeast I have has folic acid added to it. Though I wish it didn't, because I eat a lot of beans and greens and don't have to worry about getting more. Is there a significant survival benefit of mammograms after mammograms after breast cancer diagnosis? Why are you getting mammograms if you already have breast cancer diagnosed? I'm not sure I understand that question. There doesn't seem to be any all-cause mortality benefit to mammograms, period, but that's a different story. That's in terms of prevention. Is longevity, I don't even know what longevity spinach is. Is that some kind of spinach? Is it a superfood? I don't know. Unless you're just talking about spinach. Kale and collards are cruciferous vegetables, the healthiest type of dark green leafy vegetables. Get them from your garden. That sounds good to me. But I will look up longevity spinach to see if that's a thing. Can soy consumption cause spotting in women? What food can help with spotting? You need to go to your doctor, figure out what's going on. Menstrual spotting can be caused by hormonal imbalances, structural abnormalities, like fibroids or polyps. There's systemic conditions like coagulopathies. There's endometrial cervical pathologies that you need to make sure you don't have, like endometriosis and cervical dysplasia and things like that. So let's find out why you're spotting. It's probably has nothing to do with your diet. Okay, next up. Does amla powder help reduce cholesterol? I believe so. I have videos about that. In fact, we're doing a new series of portfolio diet videos where we talk about all of the foods that reduce LDL cholesterol. And I believe amla fit the list, but I have yet to review those scripts yet. Silica was researched and found to be an important role in collagen production. Bamboo contains lots of silica. Please look it up. I bet that's all silica supplement propaganda, but just because when I was looking up, I did a webinar on collagen and all the things that may be beneficial, and that is not something I ran across in the peer-reviewed medical literature. Next up. If black pepper slows down absorption in liver and grapefruit suggested to be avoided when taking medication. If I don't want to have high medication concentration, should I avoid black pepper as well? Okay, so black pepper does not actually slow absorption. What it does is it suppresses the certain detoxifying enzymes in your liver, which helps detoxify foreign substances such as pharmaceuticals. And curcumin, right? That's why if you take black pepper with turmeric, you get higher levels of curcumin in your blood because your body doesn't detoxify it as quickly or metabolize it as quickly. And similarly, grapefruit does that. And in fact, grapefruit eaters appear to live shorter lives than non-grapefruit eaters. We think that may be because so many people are on medication these days and the higher levels in their bloodstream because they've been eating grapefruit and suppressing their liver detox enzymes may indeed put them at higher risk for adverse effects. We're not exactly sure if that's the mechanism, but that's the current thinking. And so should we avoid black pepper for our medications? It depends which kind of medication. So some medications are metabolized differently. Not all medications are metabolized by the liver. Some are excreted by the kidneys, unchanged. And so talk to your doctor and have them look it up. Do I have information about red light and NIR? I assume that's near infrared light therapy and microcurrent, microneedling, and laser devices. Is it safe, dangerous, works? I do have a video and a section in my book, How Not to Age, on laser devices for hair growth. And it shows that does show significant increases in hair growth, but not significant enough to actually be clinically relevant, meaning you can't actually tell. So on a microscope, you can say, oh, look, there's more hair growth statistically, but it's not something that actually has any visible effect. So to do with that what you will. Talk about microneedling. Yeah, so in my skin chapter of How Not to Age, I've checked that out. I have not looked into the red light therapy, but I will because I know that's used for pain management. And that is something I was just doing an interview today with Joel Kahn, who said I should look into PEMFs, these pulsed electromagnetic fields. So both red light and electrotherapy will be something I investigate for my next book, How Not to Hurt, which I will be starting soon after finishing the 10th anniversary of How Not to Die, which would be out a year from next month, next December. Okay, what's next? What about other types of mushrooms? I've got videos on lion mane, reishi. I'm trying to think. Maitake. I warn people about the oxalates and chaga mushrooms. I've never heard of Masima mushrooms. What about powdered forms? Oh, yes, indeed. Powdered forms of greens, fruits, and vegetables are as a meal replacer. Are these any good? How could you possibly replace a meal? Remember, only about 90% of fruits and vegetables are water. And so, if you're eating, a kilo of food, you'd have to eat like, 100 grams of powder to get that kilo of food. There's just no way you could replace a meal like that. Now, if you don't eat any fruits and vegetables, is it better to have some powdered fruits and vegetables than no fruits and vegetables? Sure, but why not eat actual fruits and vegetables? But freeze drying actually is a nutrient preserving way of processing foods. And so, for example, I use freeze dried banana chips because then I don't have to worry about that polyphenol oxidase. And so I can make I can make banana smoothies without worrying about interfering with the bioavailability of those polyphenols. There is a fruit rich in vitamin C, a cockadoo. Someone may be playing with me, but this is a cockadoo plum. Wow, what? 3 grams? I'm a little skeptical, but is there a problem getting too much vitamin C from natural sources? At that level, yes. But I think if I remember correctly, taking grams of vitamin C a day may increase the risk of kidney stones, but it may just be in men, not women. I forget. Check out my video, vitamin C supplementation video. But oftentimes, these will just be wrong. So, for example, there's these, you go online, and amla, dried Indian gooseberry powder, is touted as the most concentrated source of vitamin C. Actually has very little or no vitamin C at all. And it's just like, I don't know, people make shit up, or maybe someone has some, I don't know where they get this stuff from. I'm skeptical. I think the food that has the highest concentration of vitamin C, yellow bell peppers, but even then, nowhere close to those kind of levels. All right, next up, Heather says, is it recommended or safe to consume ormus? The people are making things up that, not making things up, just give me things I've never heard of before, which is monoatomic metals. I don't know what monoatomic metal means. As a supplement, rhodium, iridium, gold, platinum, and palladium. I would not take palladium. No. What are you doing? This sounds like a way to sell people supplements. This sounds like a total scam, but if they have good evidence suggesting otherwise from independent sources, I'd be happy to check it out. Oh my God, people are so gullible. Loyal says, I know added sugar is bad. That's true, but I'm not clear on how it causes damage. Is it advanced glycation end products? So excess added sugar intake can cause increase in triglycerides, which is a type of fat in the blood, can increase liver fat, which can interfere with insulin resistance, interfere with insulin sensitivity, and can raise your blood pressure, can give you cavities. Added sugar is no good. Anona says, is there any connection between blood levels in the blood after consuming a meal and aging? My sister says cherries affect her blood levels. just as 1 teaspoon of sugar. Is there any effect on blood sugar? Just as 1 teaspoon of sugar. Well, so it depends on what your blood sugar levels are. But it really would be in terms of aging, in terms of glycation. I have a whole chapter on glycation in my book, How Not to Age, in part 1, where I talk about the aging pathways. And we certainly want to stick to low glycemic load foods, but that's measured not on kind of an hour-to-hour basis, but using measures like hemoglobin A1C, which kind of gives you a sense of average blood sugars, which is what our body tissues are exposed to on a day-to-day basis over a few months. And so certainly if your hemoglobin A1C is too high or your fasting blood sugars are too high, then you may have a problem with insulin sensitivity. But your blood sugars are supposed to go up and down after a meal, but they should not spike too high, and they should not, and they should go right back down without dipping under, which you can get from which you get from eating too much sugar, but you shouldn't get from eating too much cherries, because the polyphenols in cherries actually slow down the absorption of sugar through the gut wall. There's fiber, which slows down the movement of sugar through your stomach. There's all sorts of reasons why whole food sources of sugar are preferable. Maria asks, should you use sunscreen even when you're indoors and only have sunlight from windows? Oh, that's interesting. So the sunscreen, you don't get sunburnt through windows. So windows cut out the kind of ultraviolet radiation that can cause sunburns. So if like you're in a car and you have sun on, through a window, you're not getting a sunburn. But unfortunately, there are wavelengths of visible light that go through glass that can contribute to skin aging. And so we're not talking about skin cancer risk or sunburn risk. We're talking about visible signs of aging. So if you are, I don't know, if you're like in a picture window and you're getting full direct sunlight through a window on your face for long periods of time, and you're worried about superficial effects of aging, then yeah, sunscreen or curtain or may indeed help with that. I was surprised to learn that. That's something I didn't know. It's in the skin chapter and preserving your skin and how not to age. Waffler sounds delicious. What a delicious name. Thanks. Oh, thanks for my dedication. That's very nice. How important is a DHA supplement if you're already getting a tablespoon of flax daily? That's an excellent question. And so I have videos about that where I explain my reasoning and lay out the evidence, and then it's your body, your choice. You decide. My official line is I encourage people to consider taking 250 milligrams of pollutant-free DHA in addition to a tablespoon of ground flax seeds. But you may not be as convinced by the data as I am after reviewing it in my video. I am on a plant-based whole food for many years. All the markers are fine. Iron levels a bit high. Oh, iron levels high. So I'm not sure what you mean by iron levels. So there's all sorts of ways you can measure iron. If your ferritin levels are high, kind of storage levels of iron, that would be concerning. And so I would there's a whole series of kind of iron studies you can get just to see. So high iron levels can be, you find them in certain disease states. It has nothing to do with actually how much iron you have, but because it's kind of part of an inflammatory process. So yeah, I would just get it checked out. For younger Angel asks, for young individuals trying to build muscles, the safe, effective. We already talked about that. That was the first question, Angel. Is soy good for breast cancer survivors on aromatase inhibitors, which totally block estrogen production? Yes. So these are soy. So there's been 4 studies, I believe, looking at thousands of breast cancer survivors. This is women on drugs like tamoxifen or aromatase inhibitors, as well as estrogen receptor positive, estrogen receptor negative, and in general, those women who are eating soy tend to live longer and have lower breast cancer recurrence rates. And so I would encourage breast cancer survivors to go out of the way to include whole soy foods in their daily diet. Now, this is not randomized controlled trials. These are observational studies looking at women who were eating soy versus not. And look, maybe women who eat soy are involved in other healthy behaviors. And so we don't know if it's cause and effect, but the best available balance of evidence we have suggests that soy is good until we know otherwise. Interesting. Is anise a healthy spice? Yes. So there's a compound called astragol, which is found. There's a reason why I encourage people not to eat too much tarragon, but I didn't know it was found in anise. I would compare the tarragon levels to anise and figure it out. But yeah, you don't want to eat too much estragol. But how much anise are people really eating? How much tarragon is people really eating? But but I decided to go with other spices once I read about that. Vitiligo, is there anything to do with it? Oh, yes. Let me look at my vitiligo. So, I get that question a lot. And so I decided to look into it. And I think we found, let me see what, vitiligo. All right. Dun, dun, dun. I have 61 studies on vitiligo. And unfortunately, they're just sitting, waiting there for me to read them. But there is research out there. First one is systematic review of adjunctive therapies. I'm just scrolling through some of the titles to see if anything jumps out at me. Just lots of juicy reviews. Promising therapeutics. Some topical things. I don't know. Yeah, I really got to do a deep dive. But there is definitely a lot of research out there, but I just have not read it all. It's definitely on my radar, on my list. Although I have run out of time to do new topics. I just did cold immersion, another common topic. Just did taurine. What else did I just do? I just finished a bunch of topics up that I've been wanting to get to. Vitiligo did not hit the list. And now, unfortunately, I'm in book mode. But we hired our Dr. Christine Dennis, who's our new senior research scientist with nutritionfacts.org, and she's going to be scripting videos while I write my next book. So normally we have to wait for, I do a year's worth of videos and then take a year off to write a book. And so for a whole year, if I haven't written it, it's not going to happen. But now she may be able to get to vitiligo before I finish the next book. So yes, thank you for asking that question. It is definitely something I want to look into. Okay, any diet advice for gastroparesis? Treat the cause. Why do you have gastroparesis? Because you're on some GLP-1 drug or diabetes or whatever. Find out what the cause is and try to treat that before, doing anything to try to speed up your gastrodigestive tract. Our lion's mane capsules, okay. I have a video on lion's mane. Check it out. Next up, I get bloated much more before my period. Why, Dr. Greer? Well, it's because of hormonal changes associated with your menstrual cycle. It's totally normal. It doesn't mean that makes it any better, but that's just part of the human condition. Breast cancer survivor here. Are broccoli sprouts good to eat? Yes, broccoli sprouts are good to eat. Thoughts on adding salt to help with symptoms of dysregulation of your autonomic nervous system? I would not go out of your way to add salt to your diet unless you are prescribed such by a physician, just because there's so many negative effects. You have to have overwhelming benefit to counter them. Is mushroom powder as effective in obtaining ergothioneine as fresh whole mushrooms? So dried mushrooms. So the ergothioneine is heat stable and stable in the dehydration process. And so that's actually how I get most of my mushrooms. I was growing oyster mushrooms for a while, and still do a lot of fresh mushrooms. But day to day, I've got my dried porcinis, my dried mixed mushrooms. And so, you can get your ergothioneine that way. And what's nice about that is they don't go bad. You kind of always have them in stock. In fact, I have a miso soup right now on the stove with a whole 2 handfuls of dried mushrooms to make that nice, make a nice brothy component. And that's what I'm going to have for supper in soon. What are the best foods for heart failure? And iron intake. Well, of course, we have to figure out what the cause of heart failure is and treat that. There's certain types of heart failure that can be caused or exacerbated by high blood pressure. And so, if we're talking about high blood pressure, we want to be on a low sodium diet with lots of wonderful blood pressure lowering foods. And I have lots of videos about that. But there's all different types of heart failure, and it might be a valvular problem or something else that may be less amenable. Um, uh, um, and iron intake, the healthiest sources of all of our nutrients, with very few exceptions, are whole plant foods. One of the surprising sources of iron, a lot of dried fruits like dried apricots and things, a good way to kind of snack on iron-rich foods throughout the day. We want to combine iron with vitamin C-rich foods in our stomach at the same time to improve the absorption of iron. Of course, we don't go out of our way to increase our iron consumption or absorption unless we need to, particularly if you are a non-menstruating person, because we're worried about iron overload. How do you get calcium on a whole food plant-based diet? Eating tons of leafy greens, beans, and nuts only gets me maybe 400. Maybe we really do want to get more. We want to get at least 600 milligrams a day. And so you can just bring up a chart of calcium-rich foods. You're not eating enough tons of leafy greens, so and of course, there are three greens that are stingy with their calcium: spinach, beet, green, Swiss chard. So those aren't great sources of calcium. Wonderful foods, but not great sources of calcium. Cups of dark green leafies. There's certain nuts that have more than others. Sesame seeds have a bunch. You can put together a diet to get as much calcium as you need. You also do, calcium fortified, soy milk or something if you're going to add some kind of milk. But we do not want to take calcium supplements because that causes a spike in calcium in the blood, which can cause, which can kind of thicken the blood, which may explain why calcium supplementation is associated with higher risk cardiovascular events. Broccoli microgreens is great for breast cancer prevention and recovery. Okay, but that just sounds like a old broccoli sprout. Either way, broccoli is good in any form. Hello, with the exception of tempura, we shouldn't deep fry our vegetables. Hello, can children use half the amount of B12 once a week? What's the dose? I actually have an infographic talking about exactly what dose for B12 for pregnant breastfeeding women, for children based on age. Just type in B12 infographic on nutritionfacts.org. I'm sure that will pop right up. We have 1 minute. Let's see if I can squeeze in another quick one. You told us one time that more is not always better. That's true. What constitutes too much of all those things? Well, I do have a video talking about how much is too much flax seeds because of the cyanide content. Turmeric, I have a video talking about the oxalate content. When you do too much. I don't have anything about too much garlic unless you're about to go in for elective surgery. It can thin your blood. Lemon, I guess if you had too much lemon, it can erode some of your tooth enamel unless you chase it with some water to wash the natural acids off your teeth. And we don't know how much too much amla, but amla is pretty nasty. I wouldn't. It would be hard to even take the amount I recommend. And that's it. We just had an amazing webinar on Ozempic. I have a new book on Ozempic out. You can get ebook, audiobook, paperback. And the next webinar is going to be whether we should all be taking taurine supplements. It's not going to be till February, though, I think is our next webinar. But until then, happy holiday season, and go eat some sweet potato.